Welcome to Golden Ogre's Final Fantasy Beginner's Guide Chapter 2. If you missed the first chapter, be sure to check that out first and then come back. Hopefully you're at least level 5 by now because we're going to Elfland. Before we continue, let's play the ship minigame. If you press A and B at the same time 55 times, the puzzle game will pop up. All you gotta do is just move the pieces around until you get 1 through 15 in order, with the blank space being on the bottom right. If you do it, you'll get 100 gold. It's not a lot, but it's still fun to do nonetheless. If you solve this puzzle for any of the remakes of this game, you'll get way better rewards. To find the port that leads to Elfland is pretty easy. It's directly south of the port from Corneria. Just take a few steps into Elfland and your first elf will ask you to save the prince. We already got the scoop, so let's see what else we can find out. The elf near the armor shop mentions some dark elf who will take over if the prince doesn't wake up soon. Sounds like a serious problem in Elfland. The roaming elf says the exact same thing. Now there's some mysterious person named Astos who wears a disguise. Sounds like a shady character to me. This elf found an ancient castle to the northwest, but was too scared to check it out. We'll have to investigate that at some point. This elf describes silver swords and armor. Lucky for us, there's a silver sword in this town. It's not supposed to be there, but that's not our problem. Remakes of this game place the sword at the intended shops in the town later on in the game. The wandering elf to the northeast of town states the obvious. We can probably guess that the prince was put to sleep to prevent that, and the dark elf or Astos has something to do with it just from the rumors. That's it for information in Elfland. Everyone else just says basically what we already know. Before you head out, take a look at the Easter egg near the white magic shop. Here lies Erdrick. This is a nod to Erdrick from the Dragon Warrior Dragon Quest series. Oddly enough, the Japanese version and the remakes will say "Here lies Link," a reference to the Zelda series. It makes more sense, Link was an elf. Well, we're gonna go ahead and head up to the castle to find out more information about the sleeping elf. There's only one floor, so this should be quick. The elf guards explain that it was Astos who put the prince to sleep. No surprise there, but at least it's confirmed. Astos put a curse on the elf, but it's cool, we just need the herb to fix that. Wow, he's been asleep for 5 years? And yes, we get it, the herb. Well, we're working on that. Before you leave, you can find a locked room to the north. In order to get there, just walk around the edge of the room, starting near the entrance. It's locked for now, but supposedly the prince from 4,000 years ago had the key, so maybe this one knows where it is. We still have no idea where the crystal is, and that's still our priority at the moment. Still at level 5, need to prepare for the next hint, the ancient northwest castle. At this point, we need to do what is probably the longest, least satisfying level grind session in the game. But let's first head back to Elfland and go shopping. First up, the weapon shop. Rumor has it the developers didn't intend to have the silver sword this early in the game. It's ridiculously strong even at a low level. The iron nunchuck could give you a little bit of extra damage, but once you're about level 8, just unequip him and don't use weapons at all. He'll do a lot of damage that way. If you have a thief, he can equip the saber. And you can buy a large dagger for the black mage, not that he's going to do much anyway. Now make your way up to the level 3 black magic shop. This is really important. Fire 2 and lightning 2 are must-haves. Both of these magic spells will hit every enemy on screen. If you're grinding out in the oceans, Lightning 2 is going to destroy almost everything. Fire 2 is going to work really well against ogres and anything that you find on the world map. And Lock 2 actually increases enemies' evasion by 20%, so definitely don't buy that. Level 3, Cure 2, and Harm 2 are must-haves. Remember, Harm magic deals damage to all undead enemies on the screen, and they usually attack in large groups. Heal restores HP to everyone in battle, but not enough to make it worth the magic point. Anti-fire is always a good choice, but you won't be needing that till later on in the game. At the armor shop, Fighter will take the iron armor, and if you can grind long enough, try and buy up copper bracelets for everyone else, and caps too while you're at it. Also pick up an iron shield and a wooden helmet for the fighters. Now that you're getting further along, you're going to need to stock up on pure items. You're going to be poisoned a lot by snakes and other annoying enemies, and the last thing you want is a poisoned character taking damage with every step you take without a way to heal them. You won't need to buy any softs for a while, since at this part of the game, nobody turns you into stone. Level 4 magic is extremely expensive at 4,000 gold each. You'll also need to be level 8 in order to use it. Fast is one of the most important spells in the game. This doubles the amount of hits for serious damage. Ice 2 is really strong, but fire is just as effective since you aren't going to see any fire elemental enemies for a long time. Confusion and Sleep 2 are both not needed, so don't bother with them. Level 4 white magic is not needed at all. If you have a stockpile of pure potions, the magic spell is a waste. Fear makes enemies run away, but doesn't have a high success rate. Anti-ice is great, but just like anti-fire, it's not really needed till later in the game. Anti-mute is pointless since you'll never be muted in this game. From here on, you'll begin your level grind session. Once you've purchased a silver sword, some armor, and a dozen heal and pure potions, we're gonna take a break from the grind and head to the ancient northwest castle. It's not too far, and like the name suggests, it's to the northwest. Make your way through the large forest and to the left of the stream and you'll see the castle. You'll notice that the music seems friendly enough, but there's bats flying around. Speak to the king in the throne room and he explains that Astos is up to no good and that you should go to the marsh cave and bring back the crown. Challenge accepted. There's nothing else in this castle except a treasure room that's visible. No need to go there yet, it's locked with a mystic key. So now that we know there's a cave to explore, that's on our next agenda, but we'll have to wait until we're done preparing at Elfland. After you've purchased all the best armor, weapons, and magic that you're gonna need, you'll also want to have at least 20 to 30 pures to make it through the marsh cave. 50 or more heals was probably good enough. Level 8 is all you need to take on the first dungeon, but if you're stocked up like I recommended, my guess is you're probably level 10 by now, which is perfect. With your party fully stocked and beefed up, let's head to the marsh cave. Head back west to the large forest and walk in between the second gap in the mountains. Now just head south till you see the entrance to the marsh cave. You can save by using a tent. Now you can choose to beeline it to the location of the crown, or you can explore the chest, but keep in mind if you die in the cave, the game will end and you'll have to start from the last save. As soon as you enter, going up will take you to a floor where you can grab 620 gold and a large dagger, but it's not really necessary. Head south and take the stairs. The next floor has another 680 gold to the left and a short sword and an empty chest, so chances are you won't need them either. Just make your way down and to the bottom right to get to the last floor. This floor has some goodies in it, like an iron armor and a copper bracelet, so feel free to explore and grab them. Your ultimate goal is the room that's in the second column, third row. You'll know it's the right room by the way it looks. There's an enemy encounter next to the chest, so heal up before entering. You'll fight some wizards which are really strong and you can get anywhere between 2 and 4 of them at a time. Just cast fast on your fighter, blast them with lightning too, and if you need to, use invisibility and mute if it drags on. Well equipped, you'll have no issue with this battle. This strat doesn't change much as you progress through this game. When fighter has fast casted on him, he'll do massive damage, which is why having the silver sword this early in the game feels a little broken, and you know what? It is broken. The reason is due to a critical hit bug. Instead of using the assigned critical hit values of each weapons, it uses the indexed value instead. The end result means that you get an extremely high chance of doing critical hits based on that number in the game's memory. This was not intentional, but oddly enough, they kept it in some of the remakes later on. To get a better idea of what I'm talking about, the silver sword is indexed at number 17, but the critical rate was only supposed to be 5. So that's 3 times as much chance of getting a critical hit rate. Unfortunately, the end result is a lot of weapons in this game are just not as effective as they should have been. Once the crown is in your inventory, now it's time to head back to Northwest Castle. If you don't have a house, you'll want to return to Elfland to restore your magic points before heading back to the ancient castle. You'll also want some sort of tent, cabin, or house to save your game before you enter. Make your way back up to the room and give the crown back, and surprise, it's Astos in disguise. And he also has Matoya's crystal too. Well, isn't that convenient? Astos is really strong but has low HP. You can cast mute and hold, which may work, but I usually get my fast spell on my strongest fighter as soon as possible. Usually within the first turn or two, Astos will use a rub, which will basically instant kill anybody in one shot. In this case, I couldn't protect Devon, which is expected, but at least it wasn't my black mage. There's no way to revive anyone in a battle, so once you lose a character, it's permanent, at least until you make it back to a town. You eventually get a chance to learn the life spell, which is useful, but you still can't use that in battle either. When you win, the experience points is shared with whomever is alive. It's bound to happen at some point, so don't be too concerned about everyone being the same level. After a few hits of the silver sword, he'll go down, but as long as you've saved before you went into the castle, you could always restart and try again. If you have a black belt in your party, he shouldn't be using a weapon. Unfortunately, without the fast spell, he won't be doing much damage, but since he's more likely to do more hits than the fighter, it adds up pretty quickly. So you may want to cast fast on him first, well, if he survives. As long as you have at least one fighter doing some damage and plenty of magic, he only has 168 hit points, so he will eventually go down. With Astos defeated, we finally have Matoya's crystal. Since I'm assuming you've watched the first chapter, you should already know where to go, so I'll fast travel to the locations for your convenience. Also, hold off on buying any new equipment because we're finishing this chapter with a fetch quest. Make sure you stop by Elfland and save if you haven't already. Grab the ship and head north and under the bridge north of Corneria to find a port. Just head north, enter the cave, and make your way over to Matoya so you can hand over the crystal. She offers you her most powerful herb for her crystal. Now we can head back to the prince to wake him up from his curse. Back at Elfland's castle, hand the herb over to the caretaker. Talk to the prince who finally wakes up. Recognizing that you are the light warriors, he hands over the mystic key. Finally, we can open up all the locked rooms we've seen up to this point. Let's start off with the one on this floor. In this room you get some gold, a silver hammer which you can equip with the white mage. You also get a copper gauntlet which you can give to your fighter. Head back to Northwest Castle and you'll find 3 chests with goodies in them. There is a hidden enemy encounter just below each chest so you can avoid them by not walking there. There's nothing spectacular here, but the power staff is worth a lot of gold when you sell it. You get an iron gauntlet too, so swap that with the wooden one assuming you only have one fighter. The falcon is useless, but it's an upgrade if you happen to have a thief. If you feel like going back to the March Cave, on the last floor at the very bottom, there's 3 locked chests. You can get a silver knife, 1020 gold, and a silver bracelet, which is a nice armor boost for your weaker characters. Next, let's head back to Corneria Castle. Keep an eye on your inventory and make sure you sell off any armored weapons you don't need. The room to the right has an iron staff, a saber, and a silver knife. You can use the silver knife with the black mage, and if you have a thief by chance, you can use that too. In the room to the left, you're going to find a couple pieces of iron armor. So depending on what you have on your fighter, you can probably upgrade that. This chest is the TNT. Up to this point, we actually don't know what that's for, but I'll explain it in a moment. But for now, let's head back to the Temple of Fiends. When we first came here to defeat Garland, there were 2 rooms that were locked. Located at the bottom right is a room with a single chest. There's an enemy encounter with gargoyles that can be pretty tough. Just use physical attacks and cast lightning too, and that should clear them out within a round or 2. In this chest you'll find a rune sword. Due to more bugs in this game, weapons don't have the added benefits. In this case, the rune sword is supposed to do extra damage to magic users. The room at the top right has the were sword, which is meant to be effective against were monsters like werewolves and vampires. At this point, the critical hit bug isn't as important when it comes to determining what weapon to use. It's your character's hit percentage. For every 32 points, you gain an extra hit. With that in mind, some weapons may be weaker but have a higher hit percentage, so make sure you check them by equipping them first. If it brings you to the next multiple of 32, you'll do an extra hit with that weapon and it will result in more total damage. Unless you've ventured off on your own, there's no reason to know about the Dwarf Cave. Of course, you can use the map spell to see that there's something to the far west of the lake, just above Northwest Castle. West of Corneria, you'll find a port. You can walk over to the west and find the cave. The only information that's useful is that they explain the crystal was stolen by Astos, but we already knew that. Also, there's talk of a floater. This dwarf mentions it could float anything. Sounds like it could be useful if we come across it. Another one speaks of the earth rotting from the west. A little clue to what's in store soon. The blacksmith says he'll make you a legendary sword if you supply him with adamant. Sounds like a good deal to me. Head south and you'll find a giant room. That room is locked, but we have the mystic key, so no worries. Also, there's a dwarf that needs TNT to finish his canal. Luckily, we have that too. Hand it over and he'll get to work. What this will do is open up a small area allowing you to exit the lake with your ship. Before we head out, we need to grab some treasure. There's 8 chests. Most of it you could sell right away. The dragon sword is supposed to work better on dragons, but since it doesn't, it's still weaker than a silver sword. The silver armor absorbs less than the iron armor, but has a higher evasion rate, so sell it if you can't use it. Once you're done, it's time to head out. Make your way back to the western part of the lake and you'll see the new opening. Just head to the west and you'll find a port and a new town to visit. We've come a long way. We've just finished chapter 2. In the next chapter, we'll find out the cause of the rotting earth and start working towards our main objective, to revive the orbs. I hope you're enjoying this series so far. Make sure you leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in Melmond.